Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order.
But blue sheet for this?
Yeah, for
Okay.
We've got a separate blue sheet for 5.
Okay.
And here are 4 more.
Okay, thank you.
She's going to. Here or not?
Ms. Jackson and Ms. Nakamura, if you could please... Okay.
Mr. Reamer was blocking the aisle.
Okay, we've got a few speakers on this issue, and I know all of the board members probably want to make comment. I'll just begin with this issue. I asked for this meeting, and if my colleagues on the board could indulge me for a couple minutes, because I feel like I owe you somewhat of an explanation of where I've been over the past couple of days, and I certainly feel I owe that to the public. I recommend and I continue to support the action that we took 2 weeks ago, that we move forward with the parcel tax on the ballot. I do not intend to make a motion to remove the parcel tax from the ballot. And if I could take just, again, a minute to let people know where my thinking has been. So 2 weeks ago, July 13th, this board made, I think, a courageous decision to place the parcel tax on the ballot, knowing full well the challenges that we were going to face in getting to a 2/3 threshold. And we made we took that action after hearing a lot of public comment, some opposed to our decision to move forward, most of the comments that night in support of our decision to move forward. In the last couple of weeks, I've been working very hard, getting out, trying to build support for the parcel tax, trying to help put a campaign together, trying to help raise money for the campaign. And I'll be very honest, and it's been difficult. It's been tough sledding. And I can't claim to people that I think that our chances of passing a parcel tax at a 2/3 threshold are strong. I feel it's going to be very difficult to meet a 2/3 threshold. And part of the difficulty is, frankly, raising enough money for a campaign to get a message out. What our polling shows is that there's a strong majority of people in San Diego that are likely to support the parcel tax measure, but that to get over a 2/3 threshold requires a lot of education, requires taking voters through a process of understanding what the district's been up against over the past couple of years, the kinds of actions that we've needed to take, and I think most importantly, the likelihood of what the schools in our district are going to face if we're not able to be successful at either passing the parcel tax or getting some better resolution in the state budget than what we've seen from the governor's May proposal. And to raise the money to get that message out, I think is going to be very difficult. And so part of my struggle through this has been, if we're going to have any sort of fighting chance at passing this parcel tax, it's going to require enormous time and enormous energy on the part of parents, teachers, community leaders, people who care about the schools and people who care about helping us survive this crisis. An enormous effort on the part of all of us on the board. And that's a big ask to make of people, and it's maybe even a little bit bigger ask than I realized a couple of weeks ago. And it's difficult for me to look people in the eye and say, I'm asking you to put an enormous amount of time and energy into an effort that might very well not succeed. And that's been a struggle for me to get there. And then over the weekend, I've had some conversations with great people who I think are trying very hard to move an effort forward within the city of San Diego to ask the voters to approve a half-cent sales tax in support of public safety. And I think all of us have been affected by what happened to the little boy last week. And I think I believe that it's something that, whether our role is here at the school district or whether our role is simply as citizens of San Diego, I think it's important for us to think about how we can get behind the city council and support that effort. And so part of my struggle has been, that if we've got a parcel tax measure on the ballot that requires a 2/3 vote, and the city council has a measure on the ballot that has that can pass with a 50% plus one vote, that I wouldn't want to do something on our part that's going to make it more difficult, to improve or preserve public safety in the city. And I think that's something that we need to think about. So those were the issues that led me over the weekend to ask for this meeting and to consider withdrawing the parcel tax from the ballot. But I've had some great conversations with folks over the last couple of days as well. And what I've heard are people who are willing to throw themselves heart and soul into this effort, knowing how difficult it's going to be to pass. And I have made that effort more difficult with my flip-flopping over the past couple of days. And for that, I apologize, to people, who want to throw themselves into passing the parcel tax. But I think it's a fight worth fighting. The situation that our schools are facing is very real. That's not something we're conjuring up in order to scare anybody. We're talking about the devastation of our public schools and our public school system. Ms. Nakamura and I have talked about, the worry that we have that people who have the means, would just move their kids out of public schools, leaving behind a two-tiered system of education in our city, and that's not what I think our democracy needs. So this is a fight worth fighting. It's very real what we're facing. Now, when we go through the process, if we do, of fighting for this parcel tax measure, we cannot take our eyes off the ball about what's going on up in Sacramento. The state legislature and the governor have got to get together and pass a budget that protects public education. They're fully capable of doing that. There are measures being put forward by both the leadership of the state Senate and the state Assembly that would preserve public education and actually start to restore some of the money that we've lost over the past few years. And I think as a community, we need to have some focus on advocating to our local legislators, to the governor, to whoever we need to advocate to get a budget passed in Sacramento that protects public education. We need to keep doing that. But I know that while we do that, there are people in this community that are willing to go through fire, as a friend of mine described, and do what we can to try to pass a local measure that's not dependent on Sacramento, that won't on its own solve our budget problems, but that is not dependent on Sacramento. And I'm willing to get into that fight. I've been in that fight. I dropped out for a couple of days, and I'm sorry about that, but I'm willing to jump back in. And for those reasons, I'm not going to advance a motion to withdraw the parcel tax from the ballot. So, Ms. Jackson? Yeah.
The most important thing that we do is educate our children for the future. When this parcel tax was put on the board agenda, it was voted 4-0. I was absent from that vote. And that may have caused my peers to feel that even though we had some public support, it's going to be a very tough battle, and if we all are not there together, we cannot pass this parcel tax. But let me say this. I fully support the parcel tax for the children because that's what we do. We have to work together, though, as a team to ensure that it's equity across our city. I think what needs to happen, and I suggest this in other venues as well, is that both of these taxes can pass. The safety tax now is because a child was injured. This city cares about its citizens. This city cares about its children. This city, if we put these taxes together as reinvigorating and moving our city to the future, will pass because the citizens of San Diego care about the now and they care about the future. And that's going to take all of us, all the board members, all the communities, all the city council people, all of us together to do that. We have to be unified in our message throughout the city. It's not one or the other, it's together. We have done some great things together when we work together in this city. We are building a library together. We've opened clinics together. We've done a lot of joint use fields together, all on behalf of our students. This, by far, would be the largest challenge of what we do together. But I do believe that together, we will pass not only our parcel tax, but the city's sales tax as well, if they so desire to move forward. But it will take all of us. And so, even though it was a 4-0 vote, it needs to be noted that my full support is behind passing the parcel tax for the Unified School District.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Mr. DeBack.
Sure. Well, I was on board on parcel taxes a couple of years ago, and I haven't changed my mind about parcel taxes helping public schools. I do and have said that I'm cynical about the possibility of a parcel tax passing, but my principle, the main principle that I really believe is part of me, that makes me want to leave it, and I will leave it, is that I want the public to have an opportunity to vote. It isn't that we pass the parcel tax or we don't. It's not what this board does. What this board should do and what the city council should do is allow the public to make judgments about whether they want to have the services that taxes pay for. And while, you could say, well, it's not going to pass, therefore I'm not going to take the risk, which is what the city council did on the sales tax. I personally would have not minded to have both measures on the ballot, because for me, it's democracy when the people get to vote on stuff. It's not democracy when I screen their right to vote. And so I'm willing to take the lumps if the people think that the things that we're going to have to do next year to balance the budget are something they want to take responsibility for. So be it. But I stand for public education. I stand for children. I stand for, as imperfect as it is, the right of the school district to govern its affairs and to do what best they can to do what's right for kids. You can't do that without money, just like the city can't protect kids without money. And so I cannot support the withdrawal ever, and we're not going to do that, as I understand. So that makes it all the better. This time, I think it'll probably be a 5-0. We'll let it stand, and we'll take our lumps in November. And meanwhile, we'll do what we can to support and to encourage the community to understand the reasons why they ought to be voting for children in this particular case, and not voting their prejudice over some mistakes the board might have made in the past or even in the future, because we'll make mistakes. We're people. But that doesn't mean you don't want to stand for children.
Ms. Nakamura.
Yeah, I have spoken vehemently in support of this parcel tax, and I maintain that support. It is particularly as we've got all hands on deck up here on the dais, and we're going to need all hands on deck from all of our community leaders who are going to benefit, whose programs and schools that they care deeply about. It's going to take everyone working on this parcel tax. I cannot say that it's not necessary. I can't say, though, that it's also going to solve all of our problems. This is really, in looking at the deficit that we've got ahead of us, it's barely going to cover 1/3, of the need that we're going to have within the district in the coming year. Is going to put us in a terrible position. But as I keep feeling, as a mother whose family is facing a very devastating economic climate and challenge, that, if you ask me, do my children need milk? I can't say that that today they need milk, or tomorrow they need milk, or even the next day in order to live. But for a healthy life, for a healthy future, our children need this parcel tax. Our community, in order to have the types of healthy schools and the type of workforce that they need this parcel tax. But I've said it before, and I will say it again, it's not going to get done by people sitting in their homes individually thinking, I support the parcel tax, I support the parcel tax, I support the parcel tax. We've got to get out there as a community and walk precincts, be part of the field campaign that's going to shape up, come to the meetings, talk to our friends, tap our email networks, and really get out there and work this and explain why this parcel tax matters, and what it's going to do and what it's not going to do. That we're being conservative in our request for this parcel tax, particularly in what we are asking of corporations. We're recognizing that businesses are suffering in this city, that they too are struggling, and we've pulled back from asking as much as we might in this parcel tax from that particular segment of the community in recognition of that fact, and in the hope that we might gain their support. But it's going to take everyone working together in order to make this happen, and I'm glad the board has come together as a group, and maybe, Mr. Barrera, it took you pausing for a moment to bring us all together to do that. So, I think here in July, now's the time we are starting our planning, where the field as a campaign, as I said, is coming together. I deeply wanted to put a parcel tax on the ballot with Proposition S. I deeply felt that it could pass, and I think that we didn't set the table then for that discussion, and I think to this day I will always wonder if that was a mistake. But I'm glad we've come together on this, and that we're going to try, because whether this parcel tax passes or not, the needs of this district are going to remain the same, and the community needs to engage in this discussion about what we're going to do. We've already turned this budget inside out, not once last year, but twice with zero-based budgeting. We're going to do it again. We're going to scrub, and we're going to look for every dime, every penny, and we're better at it. But this parcel tax can keep us from the edge of the abyss. And I'm glad that we've got this time to sit down and sort of recommit. Yes, we do want to go forward. Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Evans.
As the fifth member of the board, I'm not going to say anything very surprising right now, because I know you can see a very united board here. Like Mr. Barrera, before getting behind the parcel tax, I asked a lot of questions. The 2/3 mountain was a very steep mountain to climb, and then I looked at it various ways, but then came to the determination it was the right thing to do. When I came on the board a couple of years ago, it was with a very can-do attitude, and we were faced with major cuts, and we said, we can do it, we can do it. And we went in and we cut a lot of things that needed to be cut, whether or not there was a budget crisis. We really streamlined a lot of operations in the district. We made things more efficient. We even listened to employees who came up with ideas that saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we all worked together on that, and we cut and we cut and we cut. We lowered our transportation budget. We cut down the amount we were spending on supplies. More recently, we've gotten concessions from employees in terms of work days and salaries. But as we've gone down through all of these things, we kept trying to protect the children in the classroom. And we finally had to start going to that. And one of the first steps was increasing the class size in the lower grades. But that, I'm afraid, is just the beginning. Because, as I said a couple of weeks ago, we really are facing a doomsday. I like to be very optimistic, but if we don't do something, we are not going to see public education as we now know it. The real issue here, I think this was brought up by Mr. DeBeck and others, is that we need to give the voters, the citizens of this community, a choice. we need to allow the public to weigh in on whether or not they want to save public education. We're not talking about frills. We're talking about saving a very streamlined educational process. I was looking at a property tax from someone in another part of California a few days ago, and they had two parcel taxes for the schools that totaled over $400 a year. That was a community that stood behind their schools. We're talking about $98 a year. We're talking about $8.25 each month that can make a difference in terms of saving what we now have in public education. I think another reason to go forward with the parcel tax is that the district and this community is really seeing that we have a stable team in place. This is not a team that's come from nowhere, but we have a superintendent and 2 deputy superintendents and others in the administration who have been in San Diego for many years, understand the community, and are really committed to a local community-based model of school reform. And this is very consistent with our going out to the community, getting our message out about what we're trying to accomplish in the public schools, all of us working together. As others have said, this is not us making a decision. This is us allowing the public to weigh in on this very important topic. And finally, I think leadership in this is very important. And I think Mr. Barrera has shown very great leadership in this. He was at the very beginning out there and talking to people.
That's the one area I disagree with.
Okay. He was out there talking to leaders in the community, various segments, some people that supported him and some that did not. He's been on the phones working on raising money for the campaign so we can get the word out about what we need to do for our public schools. And to be on the front lines means to look very carefully at what is going on and make a decision about what's the most reasonable thing to do. Leadership is not just putting your finger in the wind and seeing which way it's blowing right now, but saying this is the right thing to do, it's right to give the public a choice, and we are going to move forward and we will live with the consequences, but we will know that we have done what we can do to save public education in San Diego, and I really believe that's what the citizens of San Diego want us to do.
Okay, we've got several speakers. Councilman Gloria, I think, might have just stepped out, and Councilman Wesso, I know, have been here as well. Yeah, do you want to ask those guys?
They're there.
I'll bet.
You know those politicians are always on the phone somewhere.
I'm so sorry. We're coming up with hopefully good ideas for how we can work together.
You missed all of our great speeches.
No, I heard all of them, except for about 70% of Mr. Evans. But
okay, I'll tell you later. It was really good.
I'm sure it was. I'll watch it on television. Thank you, President Barrera, for the opportunity to come and speak. I wanted a chance to come and simply to thank the President for his leadership on behalf of public education in San Diego. And I know that since his election, he has shown tremendous leadership and dedication to our children, our schools, our teachers, and our neighborhoods of our city. And I've worked very closely with Mr. Barrera with our shared constituents on the ways that we can work collaboratively to stretch taxpayer dollars and to the ultimate benefit of both the students that you serve and the constituents that I represent. And I wanted to be here to thank you for your leadership in recent weeks and in the weeks ahead, in the months ahead, as we try and grapple with our shared challenges. I stand before you as a fellow elected official serving in the worst economy in 70 years, and we're faced with horrible choices, truly awful choices. And I wanted to be here to share the city's continued support and willingness to collaborate with this board and with the San Diego Unified School District on the ways that we can work together, as we have for many, many years, to try and address our shared challenge. I appreciate your superintendent, who's doing a phenomenal job, and you've made an excellent selection, might I say. And I know that I've worked very closely with Ms. Nakamura and Ms. Jackson because we share constituents as well. And I think it was Ms. Jackson who mentioned joint use fields, health clinics, and other things. I think there are other ways that we can work collaboratively to make sure that we, again, stretch taxpayer dollars the best way that we can. I've been speaking with our mayor on those opportunities as well. And I hope that as we share with as we grapple with our shared problem, that we can work even closer together. I know that your students, our constituents, are counting on us to really solve this particular problem. I envy the unanimous support of this board's desire and willingness to move forward with the request for new revenue. I think that this board has made clear, and I think a majority of my colleagues on the City Council acknowledge that new revenue is necessary if we're to solve our current budget problems. The City Council is not there yet. I cannot share with you today whether or not we will get there, although I do think that we'll have an answer in about a week's time, and I'll look forward to keeping you all posted, because I think we have obviously a shared destiny where that's concerned. But more than anything, I wanted to thank your president for his outstanding leadership. I think a lot of politicians could operate in any number of ways, but I think that Mr. Barrera always operates with the best interest of the students that he's in charge of, and I want to thank you again, Richard, for your service, and repeat that this city continues to willing to collaborate. I think we're about to have a wonderful groundbreaking tomorrow morning that is going to be a symbol to our ability to collaborate for the best interests of our citizens. And I hope that that's really just an opening and what will be hopefully new levels of unprecedented cooperation, again, to the benefit of our shared constituents. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak today. And again, very envious of the unanimous support that this board is showing this afternoon. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Councilmember. I'm going to call up some speakers. David Page, Sandy Matson, Sally Smith, Chris Lawrence, and Jim Miller.
My name is David Page. I live at 9393 Angwin Place in San Diego. I'm here as a parent and also a taxpayer, and I want to remind you, you're insulated from the 70% of the population that does not have children in school, and I'm certain that you're not going to educate them the amount of money that will be spent from this parcel tax on the 10% raise that you promised your union. Hope it's accumulated over the next 3 years. And there's a lot of talk about governance at this dais, and what to do about the lack of governance that allows our students of color to be only proficient at 40%. And now at this time, you're going to come to the taxpayers and ask for this parcel tax across the board to people who don't have children in school. Are you going to make them aware that you promised 10% that will be paid from this money? And are you going to make them aware of the 6% you already gave them over the last 3 years? And that's how you govern, is that you promise higher pay, according to this, and smaller classrooms. And this is going to come from their parcel tax. And are you going to inform them of all those facts? Because that's a significant issue to me, that really you've created the problem you've got. If 91% of the budget is people and you're offering 10% of that in the next 3 years, how are you ever going to overcome that? Your parcel tax is only going to go into that. It won't have time to recover any of the programs that we've lost and those kinds of things. So I'd like to hear some discussion about how you're going to protect this parcel tax from paying that 10% pay raise and reinstitute the programs that you've lost with students.
Sally Smith, 3551 Lord Street, San Diego, 92123. The board will waste hundreds of thousands of dollars when the board admits that the parcel tax is a losing proposition. That's what Richard Barrera has been saying for the last 2 days on the news. It's a losing proposition, and we have to take this off the November ballot. Again, let me remind you of the grand jury report citing stealing, mismanagement, and wasted money. The staff already is starting to propose frills, new jobs. You've given out raises. I was booed by the union red shirt teachers because I exercised my constitutional right to speak in opposition of this parcel tax. In the next few months, are we going to see more of that? Retaliation and intimidation of people because there are people who don't want anyone to oppose them on this issue?
Hi, my name is Sandy Matson. I'm with McKinley Elementary School, and I really want to applaud you for continuing your courageous effort to fight for our children. If you pulled the initiative, we would have lost right away. And we are here to fight. We put out a short email today. I've already raised close to $1,000 for you. We have 20 yard signs committed, over 200 people committed to voting yes, and that's just in 10-minute email. We are here to fight for you. We are here to fight for our children, and we so applaud you for taking the courageous effort you are today. I have my check, and I want to know who to make it out to.
All right. Thanks, Sandy.
Thank you.
Yeah, hello, my name is Jim Miller. I'm the parent of a child at McKinley Elementary. I teach at San Diego City College, and if some of you guys read the paper or heard, I'm the guy who was crazy enough to walk 365 miles to Sacramento to address precisely the crisis in revenue that we have at the state level. So I'd just like to briefly thank you for your courage in keeping the parcel tax on the ballot. And as I said, for 48 days up the road to Sacramento, this locally and statewide is a choice about what kind of future do we want for our children. That's the fundamental bottom line choice, and it shouldn't be public employees at the city and public safety versus our children. We're a better society than that, so thank you for giving the voters a choice.
Thanks.
You didn't want to leave it for me?
Always.
Thanks a lot.
You're missing out. He's good.
Chris Lawrence, near Mesa High School, teacher that some of the raises were given to. The first thing I'd like to say, you stole my thunder on the stand and fight speech I was about to make. So thank you for discovering that I do believe this is a cause, and perhaps a lost cause. So what? Sometimes those are the best. Now, the first thing I'd like to suggest is we invite our critics, our strongest critics. I think the first two speakers made valid points, and we're going to have to do that. We have to reach out. This has to be collaborative. If we're going to ask somebody to put money out in this environment, we need to ask people what they truly think. There has to be a transparent budget that's understandable, as we suggested this morning. And I thought, to your credit, Superintendent Koba, this was one of the better meetings I've ever seen. It didn't reek of mumbo-jumbo. There was actually something being done. And I think that if we got that out, that let's just say we did not pass the parcel tax, it's going to force us to make the changes that we need to make. It's going to force us to streamline. We're going to have to explain to the voters why we're doing this. For example, as you well know, I'm strongly for taking our district and making it the first district that has infrastructure training, construction training, green technologies. But we have to explain that and demonstrate that. Tell everybody. We have to explain how we're going to vertically align our mathematics. And if our scores are low, then we should be able to explain ourselves. And if the San Diegans for great schools, they should have been invited to the tables too. Because our critics are really going to tell us the truth because they don't particularly care for us, and that's who we should be listening to first. I don't like the numbers. If anything could be changed, I think it should be $60 for a condominium, which is $5 a month, $10 for a residential, which is $120 a year, and times 5 for a business. Because if we go down, we're all going down. What would it do to the property values? Now, again, the points that the first two speakers make, I respect, and they're well taken. I think we should take that and even go further and criticize ourselves to the nth degree. But we still need to get through this. Collapsing the second largest school district in the state of California and the eighth largest economy, which is California, is not going to do anybody any good. And if mistakes were made and we've wasted money, and I've brought to this board's attention many times things that you know I speak the truth. I'm a strong critic of central office bureaucracy, but we still must stand for these kids. And I'm not going to hide behind them. They're our props. We need to, as the adults, understand firstly how we're going to help our children. Now, I'd like to invite anybody who's on opposition to let us have it. Just blast away. And we'll have those as our starting points for the discussion. And I thought this morning was a pretty good job about that. I really felt for the first time, as Mr. DeBeck said, he knows no one is going to support it. Well, you haven't explained to them why they should not, you personally, Mr. DeBeck. But we, as a group, why are we doing this? Well, we do need the money. There's a financial crisis. But more importantly, we have to design programs. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Okay, Kelly Mayhew, Matt Spathis, Norma Sandoval, and Edith Smith.
Hi, I'm Kelly Mayhew, and I'm from San Diego. I'm a teacher and a parent of a child who's going into first grade at McKinley Elementary. We're well represented here. First, I want to thank you. I thought I was coming here to urge you, beg you, to keep the parcel tax on the ballot, because I know, coming from my own district and being married to the guy who walked up the state of California to protest budget cuts to education. We need revenue. And I know how much work you all have done to cut. I know city school teachers and how much they do, how much extra they do. And I don't think that there's any way around raising the money for this. And I know I am on board 100% in helping, as Sandy said, to raise money to do what we need to do to get this passed, because it's what we need to do. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Board. Matt Spathis, parent of 4 children. First of all, I'm not here to take a position on the parcel tax right now. I do appreciate your efforts. I did want to provide some feedback. To do that, I had to reach back to the 1988 Democratic Convention, where Jesse Jackson said, right wing, left wing, and this is to paraphrase, right wing, left wing, it takes 2 wings to fly. And right now, I feel at times San Diego Unified is flying at 1 wing. There are wonderful conversations occurring all over the country around race to the top. I was extremely disappointed to see the San Diego Educational Association vote no confidence to Race to the Top. I was curious of which parts of Race to the Top they did not agree with. Demonstrating significant progress in raising the achievement gap, developing and adopting common standards, developing high-quality assessments, using data systems to support instruction, providing high-quality pathways for teachers and aspiring principals, improving teacher effectiveness based on performance, measuring student growth, developing evaluation systems, conducting annual evaluations, turning around low-performing schools, or emphasizing science, technology, engineering, and math. Now, I am perplexed, and I will say I was also perplexed by the new collective bargaining agreement, which basically pushed teacher evaluations from every 2 years to every 5 years, and as this board knows, prohibits the use of student performance data in evaluating teachers and, in fact, enhancing teacher performance in the classroom. There are wonderful conversations occurring around the country. Today it was announced that 18 states are finalists in the Race to the Top for $3 billion. 100 districts in the state of California entered, not San Diego Unified. In Washington, D.C., teachers voted 1,400 to 400 to vote for performance over seniority and to use student data as part of a metric, and only a part, not all of, to improve the classroom performance of students. I would encourage this board to incorporate an accountability component to this parcel tax. And I'm going to give you a very, very specific example. And I'm not a big fan of API, but I am a fan of measuring student growth each year. Accountability is used several times in the 2020 plan, yet I don't see specific, direct accountability for student growth on a year-to-year basis that will be determined and accessible by each student. Let me share with you the Washington, D.C. student performance evaluation that I'll email to this board, and hopefully you'll consider. I'm going to give you an example of 2 high schools in San Diego. One high school, the budget, $7,000 per student, with an API performance of 574. Another school, $5,200 per budget, with an API of 832. If we break that down by the cost per API point, $6.27 per API point for School B, and $12.32 for School A. As you know, we dole out Title I money blindly to schools based on socioeconomics, not based on best practices, innovation, or performance. So with that, I'd like to close and say, well, I can't take a position on the parcel tax today. I would like to see this board include a very specific accountability metric to the way this dollars will be used. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I'm Edith Smith, and I'm very glad to come behind this gentleman because he said a lot of what I have on my heart and on my mind. I do not support this parcel tax. That's not new. I've come before you to say that before, and not that I don't believe in the children. I cannot support to give this district more money to remain the status quo. That means our district is in program improvement. There's nothing in this parcel tax that says that it is going to raise the level of our children, and that is what I'm truly about. I'm very concerned about the leadership of this board. Ms. Barrera, it seems that you're just swaying with the wind. I mean, on Monday you're one way, on Tuesday you're another way. Our children deserve better than that. And while I respect collaboration with the city council people and the mayor and all other groups that can help us do good by our children, I think the mayor kind of punked us, and that doesn't make me feel very good. Okay? I want good schools for our kids. I want good programs for our kids, but I cannot support this that's going to just backfill the status quo. There's no accountability, not enough accountability, not enough transparency, and we need to get about the business. What we need in this district is first we need skill and will, and then we need dollars, because without the skill and the will, the money will just go. And we want to ask our voters to pay more money for a program improvement district, the status quo by which this board has already promised the first of that money to go to adults, not to programs, but to go to salaries. And we already have a budget that has over 90% of salaries and benefits. That's unacceptable. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Norma Sandoval, 6720 Springfield Street, San Diego 92114. About 2 weeks ago, I sat in this audience pleased that this board voted in favor of placing the parcel tax on the ballot. As a mother of 3 children at Language Academy, a community member and National Board Certified teacher in this district, I applauded your leadership. This board had the courage to take a stand for our children and our teachers when our state and city neglected to do so. Yes, there are many problems in our district. However, this transparency policy that we're trying to accomplish may be able to help many of the concerns that many of our members here validly have. Yes, the fight will be tough. Yet anyone with common sense will realize that investing in our children and our teachers is a positive and essential step towards meeting the society's needs. An educated child has a greater chance to become a productive member of society, while a dropout has a higher chance to become a dependent on it. As a mother and leader, and teacher, you can count on me to advocate for this parcel tax for free. I have begun to contact my friends and colleagues and to vote in favor of it. They have all answered favorably. You have our support. We only need yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. There's no action necessary, so we will conclude this meeting, and then we'll start our regularly scheduled meeting. Thank you. Two minutes. Yeah.
2 breaks and then
I was thinking that. Yeah. Okay, let's get our regular meeting called to order, and we'll start with public testimony. We've got Francine Maxwell and Sally Smith.
Francine Maxwell, parent of a child at Lincoln. I'm just here to request that the board, when you're talking about the parcel meeting and everything, that we bring in the grand jury report and especially pay attention to the recommendations dealing with increasing the audit and the investigation staff of the district. This would help bring to the attention a lot of items a lot faster, especially the Reading Corps volunteer program coordinator that was proposed to be paid $85,000 to duplicate the services that already exist in the Community Relations Office. The Board of Directors does not adequately fund supplies. Children at Title I schools that cannot afford a calculator, they do not have access in their math classes to calculators because the supply budget has been cut. Items that are missing on campuses, custodians that are vital to the school, they're missing. The district has a lot of SSCs that are paying for community liaisons / community representatives. Their job is to do work to gain volunteerism. They're getting paid, and the schools that are sending back over $100,000, there should be a problem with that, and the audit people, the investigation people, they will be able to go to those schools and look at why are the same schools sending back over $100,000, $200,000. My other question is, looking outside, the district is adding to the bureaucracy like they've done in the past. I call it sneaking, you may call it something else, to sneak in these positions. I've heard, and it's just a rumor, that the area superintendents, they need assistants. The principals are their assistants. The head counselors that don't have a caseload, they could be their assistant. Why do positions need to be added when you need to look at the waste that is going on these campuses? Once again, Title I schools that every year send back over $100,000 to over $200,000. I do believe, I was reading somewhere, that there's a PR program to be done by Mr. Bernie Reinerson. I don't know what happened to that. In closed session, there really needs to be an audit of some resumes. I'm concerned about people that have worked on people's campaigns. Their resumes are sitting there to be making some of these $85,000 jobs. In closing, I would just like to say, let's think right now of the city of Bell, and let's look to the outrageous practices that are going on, not only in the city of Bell, but what are going on here in our own city. It's an insult to the hard-working volunteers in this district. We put in a lot of hours on our campuses. We do not get paid $85,000 to coordinate some more volunteerism. Once again, I would just like to say, when we have the meetings coming about that parcel tax, let's make sure that we have copies of this grand jury report. Thank you.
Sally Smith, 3551 Lord Street, San Diego, 92123. The 2010, same topic. The 2010 San Diego County Grand Jury cited illegal fees that parents have been charged. How are poor families going to be notified that they can't be forced to buy school PE uniforms or pay for anything else, calculators, just like the other lady was saying? They don't have access to computers, so the fees guidelines need to be sent out to the families when school opens. The fees guidelines online are wrong and they need to be corrected. Also, they need to be more visible. They're hard to find. I also suggest that the district should post the fraud hotline reports that come from our hotline reports. They should be posted right there so everyone can see the waste and the ways that money's being mismanaged, so there can't be any questions about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks for that extra effort, Amy. Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone present today and those watching the broadcast and call the July 27th, 2010 regular meeting to order with all board members present. The board welcomes your comments in writing or during public testimony. Public testimony request forms are located on the tables to my right inside the front and back entrances to the auditorium. The board asks that speakers focus their comments on issues and not on individuals. Acceptance of public testimony requests will be closed as each agenda item is called and our discussion begins. Board members and the superintendent are interested in your comments, and staff will be responding to the issues that we hear today. If you wish to address the board today and your name is not on the blue sheet located at both entrances to the auditorium and you've not already submitted a request for public testimony form, please complete the form and submit it to Ms. Ward. Speakers on agenda items will be called on to speak during the discussion of the agenda item. Non-agenda item testimony was heard at 5 p.m. and will also be heard at the end of the meeting. We'll move on to item C1, our administrative assignments. Superintendent.
Thank you, President Barrera. We have the following assignments. Mary Canny to Interim Principal, Boone Elementary School, Office of Area Superintendent, Area 1. Diana Carberry to Area Superintendent, Area 7, Office of Deputy Superintendent, Academics. Gwendolyn Kirkland to Interim Principal, Fulton K-8 School, Office of the Area Superintendent, Area 1. And Emma Martinez to Interim Principal, Crawford High School, Invention and Design Educational Academy, IDEA.
Right. Would you like to move on to your information?
Yes, thank you very much. I have a number of things. One, I talked to the board and the community at our previous business meeting on the 13th of July about the curfew sweep discussion that we had begun with the city. And we are, in fact, going forward with those discussions and the research. And I volunteered to go on the curfew sweep myself in early August to have that firsthand account of how we're doing and what are the issues. The intent here is to smooth out the interventions as the kids are collected and brought together. How can we help them, help the parents, help the schools impacted in order to make sure that it's a positive experience and a smooth effort all around. So that's ongoing, and I'll keep you all abreast of what's happening there. Second, on the 14th of July, I had the opportunity to participate in the Rosa Parks ELL, the English Language Learner reclassification. That was a lot of fun. A standing room only crowd in the multi-purpose room, and I was able to witness 56 students between grades 3 and 5 receiving certificates and medals for their very good work, and lots of proud parents, family members, and friends in attendance. Next item was the Senior Leadership Retreat on the 16th, a week ago Friday, and I really enjoyed the opportunity. I think the district staff did this morning on the workshop to debrief you, to get your input, your engagement on the issues of the management culture, our focus on academics in the coming year, and of course on the budget. And we go forward with another academic retreat planning session in mid-August on our way to the Welcome Back School event. Hard to say that, but Welcome Back to School on the 24th of August for our planning purposes. The last item I have, I think, a very positive story. Next week on Wednesday, I'm going up to Sacramento for a couple of reasons, but first and foremost to participate in the 84th Annual California School Employees Association, our CSEA conference. One of our very own, Patricia Hernandez, a paraeducator at the OSILE program in Old Town, is going to be one of the top 2010 members of the Year Award ceremony, and I will be there with her. This is a statewide competition. We have one of San Diego Unified's finest receiving that recognition, and while I'm there, we'll also meet with Monica and have some discussion of where we are with the legislative process, but I do look forward to that award ceremony. And I'm told thousands of members come together at the Sacramento Convention Center for it, so looking forward to it and let you know how we do. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Superintendent. Can we get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So, second.
Please vote. Did you get that, Cheryl? Okay, and can we get one motion to adopt items E1 through 3?
So moved.
Please vote. You guys, Ms. Nakamura and Mr. DeBeck? E1 through 3.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay, and let's move on to information reports. Mr. DeBeck, do you want to start?
Nothing.
Okay, Ms. Jackson?
Just very briefly, again, I think this morning the presentation with the board and the staff is starting a new transition in the district. I look forward to those conversations, and at a time when we can have those discussions, especially as we prepare our budget for the year, for the next year anyway, that we're able to come to the table in advance to make sure that we do what's right on behalf of our students. And again, I applaud the rest of the board and myself for moving forward with the parcel tax. We really need to take care of that business. Thank you.
Mr. Jackson. Dr. Evans.
I also want to thank Mr. Koba for a very good presentation this morning. We had a workshop with the board and the senior leadership of the district, and I think that in the coming weeks and months we're going to see some really important improvements in the district. I think that the team, which has only been in place for a few weeks at this point, is already very actively moving forward, and I think our whole point of getting the word out to the citizens of San Diego of what's going right in San Diego is going to get out, as well as what we need to do to improve. And I think in keeping with what some of the speakers said, I think that one of the key elements, and they're certainly going to find this under Superintendent Koba's leadership, is that we will listen both to those who agree with us and who disagree with us and take all of those points of view into account in a real community-based effort.
Ms. Nakamura.
Yeah, I'd like to echo what everyone has said about the parcel tax and about this morning's meeting. I'm very pleased we're going forward with the parcel tax. It's important to have the unanimous votes of the board on this, but it's also important to have the community support that showed up and came out and spoke for it and against it. It's important to know where we stand and what people's concerns are, so that we can address them and hear them out as to it should be a serious thing when you place a tax on the ballot. It's not a trivial matter. This morning was also very well done. It was a good conversation, and I'm glad we're going to be having the meeting on August 24th. That's going to start of the school year. I think there's a lot of room for improvement in this district, certainly, and we seem to be heading down the right road in that direction. There was an important meeting of the Asian Pacific Islander community that I was invited to regarding the redistricting of the city council seats, and I just, while that doesn't affect this body, I would like to report that one of our students from Scripps Ranch High School, who is the head of JROTC for the entire district, was invited to speak, Kevin Nguyen, and acquitted himself very well. We should be proud. We should put our students up to speak, particularly those that are juniors and seniors more often. We should make better use of our ASB presidents and hear their voices, particularly with regard to this parcel tax too. They do us well. They are our best example of what is right in this district and of the direction that we should continue to head. So I just wanted to give Mr. Nguyen a shout out. I was very proud to see him there and to hear him. So thank you.
Right. Thanks. In the spirit of Chris Lawrence and what Dr. Evans talked about reaching out to people who we sometimes disagree with, I had a couple of great conversations over this past week with Scott Himmelstein and Matt Spathis, who are, I know, involved in the San Diegans for Great Schools effort. I'm going to go and speak to that group on August 25th. And I also had a great conversation with Bill Freeman, the former math teacher of the year and the current president of the San Diego Education Association. And what's extraordinary is the degree to which what Scott and Matt and Bill all look for in what a great school needs to be doing in order to educate kids. They're very, very much on the same page. They're describing a vision, all three independently, that's almost the exact same vision, and is very similar to the vision that we heard this morning from Nellie Meyer and from our staff. I think it's worth this community, not just us on the board, but I think it's worth this community taking some time to listen to each other because I think there's incredible overlap of what people see as important. There's a few areas where people are going to disagree, but the substance of what it takes to make a great school and to educate every kid, there's really quite a lot of consensus about, even though I'm sure people would be surprised to hear it, and I hope people get out and start listening to each other. Okay, let's move on to item F2. This is the update on the school district's Vision 2020. We've got a public speaker on this item that I'm going to invite up, David Page. Well, that's David first.
My name is David Page. I still live where I told you before. I had a look at your brochure, and I circled a few things. It's interesting to me that the document really does not have any exacts in it. It does have some goals. I'm not certain that these are new goals. I don't see anything in here that you have been against or haven't wanted all along. But I am curious about something on the very first page that says, actively engages all parents and staffs and citizens. I would like to know, who were the parents that were on this committee that wrote this document, and where did they come from? I know you can't talk to me, that's fine, but at some point in time maybe you could reveal that to us as to the amount of community involvement or the parent involvement in this. But there are some things that come through this document that are kind of glaring. I'm excited that under schools as neighborhood learning centers, schools will be safe, attractive neighborhood learning centers. I'd challenge you to drive through your neighborhood schools come August and have a look at them. I guess this means you're going to be hiring back your landscapers and that kind of thing. I'm not sure how fast this will actually come to fruition, but I am excited about that. But the other piece is the salaries and benefits will rank among the top within the state. You're working on that already. I'm not sure who the employee here is that wouldn't want to pass a parcel tax for the promise of a 10% raise. And so that one's in here, and that seems to be new. Low student-to-teacher ratios, having less students to grade papers for and to work with, that makes the job just a little bit better too. So I'm not sure what's new about that. You've shown that all along, that you would rather lose programs and pay teachers than have extra programs for students or supplies, because now we're from 87 to 91% in payroll. And the parents will play an integral part in school site council governance and city and school site councils. The item on here for the establishment of the Reading Corps volunteer didn't go past anybody's school site council. It didn't go past the MAC office. So I don't know when you're going to start, but now would be good. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ronerson.
Thank you, President Barrera, members of the board. I just wanted to give you a little context about this document that you have before you, and to thank the input that I've received from all board members about this. This really is, as Mr. Page said, this is not a new document. What we were working to do was to take the board-adopted Vision 2020 statement, which you adopted back in February, which the board had extensive discussions about over a several-month period, and to take that and put it into a document that we could use with the community, that we could kind of incorporate some other information with it to give it context. So I took your adopted document and really formatted it differently, highlighted the key areas that were in that document, so it's no longer a two-page Word document, but it's something that it's still concise, it's easy to read, it highlights what I perceive the board was looking for in your Vision 2020, so that our parents and our community can see the vision that this board has set out for the district. And again, it is Vision 2020, and I'm sure board members see this as a step-by-step process. From listening to your board comments in the past, you don't see all these things happening immediately. You heard a presentation from Dr. Meyer this morning about the steps that the academic leadership is taking to implement this. So with this document and the document that Dr. Nellie Meyer gave to you this morning about the community-based reform, we will now have two good communication tools that we can use out in the community that says where the district is headed and what the vision this board has laid out. What I envision to be the next step for this is I've gotten a lot of comments already. It's went through lots of iterations, but if the board feels that we're on the right track here, I'd like to go and finalize this document and have it available on our website and in the community as we go out and we have these difficult conversations about the budget. It's important for the public and the school community to also know the things that we're doing on the academic side. So with that, I'm open to any direction and any questions, but I would like that direction from the board to take this and finalize it. Thank you.
Ms. Nakamura?
Yeah, I think this is a beautiful document, and as an English literature major, I really appreciate the poetry that's included on the side. We don't have enough poetry, and it's nice to see something our students are learning, actually on the page. The layout's gorgeous, and you've certainly captured all of the work that we've been doing for 2 years now. For 2 years we've been working on this. But Mr. Reinerson, when I was at the Asian Pacific Alliance on the City Council District, people did not go around popping up and saying Filipino, Indo-Chinese, I'm other Asian, and I'm Pacific Islander. They were the Asian group, and if you add all of these little numbers up here, 6%, 5.1%, 3.3%, 0.8%, it actually comes to 15.2% of the entire district, and I think that as a community, I'm pretty confident that on this document at least, they would prefer to see themselves listed as a single entity. There is power in numbers, so that's, I know I brought this up before, and I feel like I'm, beating an old drum here, but I think it's important, particularly before this document goes out. Unless, Mr. Brzee, is there any legal reason? Mark? There's no legal reason why we have to separate, because my children come under other Asian, so I'm, Thank you. All right.
Any other board comments, Dr. Ruther?
Yeah, I want to thank Mr. Reinerson for working on this. As Ms. Nakamura said, we've been working on this for a long time, since the beginning of 2009, and we had a lot of public workshops about this. And also another thing we did was, when we were going through the superintendent selection process, we also gave information about the 2020 vision and asked the community some of their input about what they considered important for the school. And so that was another thing that he had all that data he was taking that into consideration. I mean, it's very difficult to do things by a committee and come up with the sentence structure and so forth, but we did come to an agreement on the basic document, and you were able to reproduce that in a more readable way and more reader friendly. And I think it's really great too, in terms of the basic facts about Sandy Unified School District, just to kind of show what the district has, including what are its challenges and what is its broad diversity, and also the mention on the back of the goals for student success, which is a really, really important thing that we are working on under the direction of Deputy Superintendent Meyer, because this is really the meat of what we're working on in terms of as far as student achievement. We're saying we want to measure student achievement, but we're going to measure it in a much broader way than just we're going to include the standardized tests, and we want to have good performance on those, but we're going to go beyond that. And so I think this is a really good document as a starting point for conversation. And the whole point is, we really are in a marathon, and the idea is we're not just racing to some quick gimmicky reform, but we're saying our third graders, the kids who are going into third grade this coming school year, are going to graduate in the year 2020, and this is the vision of what we want to accomplish in the next 10 years. Now, we'll certainly modify it as we're going along, but we don't expect everything to happen overnight. But we want to have a long-term vision so that we can say, this year, this is the part of it that we're going to bite off, and I think that was part of what was discussed this morning at the workshop in terms of getting started on this.
Great.
I think we should give Mr. Reinerson permission to go ahead, to get on the web, to get it published so that we can get the word out.
There's one inconsistency. On the back you say goals for student success, and it's GSA, goals for student achievement. Is there any... I thought that might be just a... Okay. I like parallel construction. It makes it easier for people to understand.
Okay. So do we have basic consensus to ask Mr. Reinerson to move forward?
Basic consensus, yes.
You got some specifics?
There's some maybe poetry or sayings are nice to put on the sides, but there's one here that I totally disagree with. It has to do with reverse engineering. And it's under the student achievement part. I think we should be able to start with a vision and work backwards to make, points that we're making. In this quotation from Wheatley and Kellner-Rogers is something that I totally disagree with.
It's very easy to change. Those are simply put there as my suggestions, and there are a lot. They're placeholders.
My point is that, if we publish something, I honestly do believe that this district has not done as good a job, and the 2020 vision is reverse engineering. We don't have things in place that are in this document. And then in the document we say that's something we don't want to do.
I have a recommendation. We have
and I'm sorry that I did pick that up, but I don't. I don't agree with it.
We have a graduate. We have a graduate in San Diego Unified who is a poet laureate for the entire United States and won the Pulitzer for poetry. Why don't we put one of her quotes in here? And I'm sure she's got one.
But something that's anti what we're doing.
Right.
Ray Armitrout.
Don't contradict with poetry.
What? Okay.
Yeah. I'm open to those suggestions, and before we finalize it, we'll take care of that.
Thanks.
Sorry, I didn't just give you a rubber stamp. It's a good job. It's pretty, but I didn't like that part.
There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Ronerson.
I actually like.
Let's move on to item F3, our Title I parent involvement policy, and once again, David Page would like to speak.
Well, before we do this, should I just point one thing out?
Okay.
If you look at the document on our web docs, and if you look at I'll call it it's got 7 different exhibits. We're not approving 7 different exhibits. We're producing the outcome of all that work.
Right.
Okay? But so when the agenda item is posted, I believe the final work product should be there, not the history. The red line document is not a value. It's only because it's a process document. What we need to do as a board is look directly at the recommendations and have a knowledge of not how they got to where they are, but yes, we agree with them, or don't. Yes, we don't. And the testimony should say, in example, I'm sorry about this because I do agree with the final output. What I don't like is the exhibit. Okay, and so here's one that says. Title I Parent Involvement Policy, red line, DAC approved, 210 PDF. That's a document that's obsolete in this exhibit because the final policy is Title I Environment Policy Final Revision 726. But the thing that it doesn't say in the 726, and I think we'll hear from David on, is it wasn't DAC approved. So then, what am I supposed to do? Pick out these documents and look at the ones that are DAC approved, and then say, well, because they didn't approve it, then I don't want to approve it. When I really need to hear, what I really want to see is the final document, which is the revision 226, and I also want, and then we just approve, as a byproduct, we approve a timeline. But it's in the agenda item, but it's not an agenda item that's noticed that we are approving a timeline. It's only just an appendix. So, maybe it should be that the item should read, in my critical way, I'd say, Title I Parent Involvement Policy and Timeline, to be accurate on what the agenda is all about. And then in the exhibit it should show only those final products and then have a statement in it that says DAC approved or not. I'm only talking about process. I don't disagree with the final thing. And then as I look down at the history, in the thing, it's been through, there's at least, there's 5 entries of different people who have processed it. And the final date was 7/22, final approval by Nellie, which and was approved by Phil before that. The point is, filter out the stuff that we don't need to see. Don't clutter up the agenda with stuff that's your work process. Your work product doesn't matter to me. It's the final product that I'm concerned about. Thank you.
Well, I disagree. I like having everything so I can see what the changes were.
Ask about them.
Well, that's why they're here, so that we don't have. Because what happens is we'll get the final, and we have said in the past, what changes are there? What was taken out? What was putting in? And we don't know. So I just think the staff has just provided it. So for those who want to look back and see and verify, it's all there. What changes? Who met when? To make sure that we're saying that we're collaborating. We're saying that we're including everyone, and the evidence is here.
Okay, but then the item that we're approving is not clear.
Is this it right here? Is this 5 to 6 page item?
Yeah, but what about this one? This has got red lines.
I know. I read the red lines and they went to here. That's what I had to find out.
Okay, I'm going to actually ask our speaker.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. It's not clear.
It's different.
David Page, if you want.
David Page, DAC Chair. I'm going to disagree with John just a little because I don't think he sees the beauty in this. As the DAC Chair, what's obvious in this agenda item is that the DAC approved something in February. And I don't have to argue about it or make you guess about it. You can tell that something happened after February. Now, whether or not that's critical or if it's significant, I think it's mostly wordsmithing at this point. But what I do know about this process is that we go through it every year. So if there's something in there that's not quite right, I'm assuming I'm going to have an opportunity to form that committee again, have them go through what was approved, and work this out. I think most of what happened was in February we didn't know that there wouldn't be a executive director for state and federal programs. And so that name is all throughout. So that had to be obviously modified. I don't see the MAC office in here, though. And I don't see other things that might have been modified through the changes in what was done with the organization. So maybe that's the majority of what this is. I'm not certain because these things weren't posted in a timely manner for anybody to see for what is a regular meeting. I don't know that they were ready 72 hours prior. But I'm thankful that people attempted to get what they had at the time on the agenda for us. So as the DAC chair, I'll say, yeah, the DAC didn't approve probably what the final outcome of this is, but it might be accurate as far as what the status of the district is. So there we are. In the summer, we didn't have time to form a committee to go through these things and approve them, but the committee can be formed at any time once the school starts in September. I don't think it's going to make a material difference in how the DAC functions or our relationship with the school board and those kinds of things. The purpose of the document is to explain how is the district going to support parent involvement required under Section 1118 of the NCLB. And that's what we're interested in. And there's nothing in here that changes the dollar amounts or anything like that, so I'm semi-satisfied with what happened. I'm, however, not happy with what happens with MAC because I don't see that being involved in the decisions that are being made, and I don't see that vetting this document or other things, and so whatever happened without going through that process that was set up. Also, just to note, the first item on this parent involvement policy is that the district is going to involve the DAC in changes to the LEA plan. And I'm here to tell you today that you have yet to comply with that. And while we keep approving this document, I'd like to see compliance with that in the interaction with the DAC for changes to the plan. And so the next agenda item that comes up that was actually tabled had to do with spending of Title I money that the suggestion didn't come through the DAC, it didn't come through the MAC office, and it didn't result in a change to an LEA plan. It just shows up as a whim. That's the kind of thing that has to change in process. That MAC office was supposed to be an accountability measure outside of the usual and customary operations that reported directly to the superintendent, so there could be an independent view of what was right and not. And so the fact that there are multiple documents in this item here should have been seen by the MAC office, which has an interim director, who could have noticed, hey, really is this appropriate or not? And the same true for the next item that comes up is, was the DAC notified? Is this in compliance with the district's procedures 9060 or 62? So something has to be done to have the MAC office be more than just a name when you've got an interim director drawing a paycheck to do the job, and something has to happen to involve the DAC more regularly in the changes in the local education agency plan. Thanks.
Nellie, do you want to go over the plan?
I was just going to share the comment that the red line version was put in so the changes could be shown and made more clearly. We're certainly open to whatever direction you give as a board as to which way you would like it to be presented.
I move approval of this document.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay.
Is this the policy and the timeline and the final work product?
Yes, the revised one that we found in our folders here on the dais, because it does include the monitoring and the accountability reporting department, as I think the changes were. So I move approval of the revised document that we have on the dais, dated 7/27.
Okay, please vote. Okay. On to item F5, resolution in support of the California State Board of Education adoption of the Common Core Standards.
Second.
Got a motion and a second.
May I say I was very pleased to see this.
Okay.
Did we get it, or did you just?
Okay.
There you go.
Great. Okay, item G1, this is the restructuring plans for 8 district schools in program improvement year 4 status.
Move approval.
Second.
Comments?
It's the first reading.
First reading.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
I read it.
Okay.
Interesting.
I made this comment this morning, but I'd like to make a comment.
Please. Yeah.
Okay. After going through all this and looking at the different ones, which is quite complex, and everybody's trying to make, and they're working hard at this. But if you start from the very beginning and look at the themes and whether they were substantially correct for the school, and whether or not they are the kind of thing that the school should be doing that could be raising achievement at that school, you might say that maybe they ought to just relook at what their theme is rather than relook at how they do their theme. And so when you bring in a restructuring plan that says we're going to continue with our theme and doing the same things we're doing, it can only be a certain level of change. But it may be that the theme is wrong in the first place. And there's no look at that or no validation of we believe this is a very popular, attractive program that will lead kids to certain pathways. That part is just assumed that we've got to do what we're told. And so my view on this is if we're trying to be creative, one of the things we should be doing is when you look at restructuring for SEMA or any other school in San Diego High or other places where restructuring is a topic that they need to address, maybe the question should be, is this the appropriate theme? Do we have to restructure doing what we're doing, or do we really reinvent the school? And that's not ever part of the discussion. It's just like, you ask a kid, here's the ingredients, now fix your lunch. Well, they get only one choice because it's just bread, butter, and a slice of bread and a piece of cheese, and that's all they can do, and they move it around. Maybe they put the cheese on top instead of the meat, but whatever. So that's what I'm getting at, is I think that the argument about the need for restructuring should extend beyond how do you restructure what we're already doing, but how do we restructure ourselves as a more effective school?
Any other comments, staff, on this item? If not, okay, it looks like we're on to item H1.
That was just first reading anyway.
That was first reading.
Yeah. It's not going to change second reading, is it? No. I didn't think so.
So can we get a motion and a second to approve item H1? This is the...
Yeah, I'm so moved. Second.
Comments?
Vote.
No.
Oh, you got a comment.
Hold on.
H1?
I'd like to, I would just...
H1.
Yeah, okay.
Is Mr. Markey here? Is this your item?
This is, you got to do it.
Yeah. No, just hold on here.
Well, I don't care. You vote no.
Yeah, all you need is 4 votes, so, and I'm not saying I'm not voting for it. I just want to, these easements, I've had a couple of them at my schools, and I just want to observe that I think that SDG&E is becoming extraordinarily careless with the aesthetics involved. I mean, they're putting big cages on the front lawns of our schools that are extraordinarily unattractive, and to the point that it's looking cluttered. What are we going to do about that? I mean, when we grant them an easement, they're allowed to just do whatever they think is attractive, or we get any kind of intervention and voice in looking at the aesthetics of our schools.
I think the more active role we take in the placement of those in the location and the aesthetic value, the better results we'll get.
Yeah.
And I'll work with the team to be sure that we have that dialogue. Typically these things are turned over in a process. It's a big bureaucracy, and a project manager places these things. And the results aren't always good, so I think we'll have to have renewed interest in this.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to vote against this, just as a protest statement, and just to sort of bring it home that I really think it is an issue, so that the next time there's somebody else notices
we'll have
this
to
going
put
on
some
at one
covenants
of their
in there to make sure that they.
Yeah. Okay. Can we amend that then to put covenants? Is that what you're recommending? Or
I hesitate to do that with this item because we'd have to go through the legal folks and find out where we are. But, if it's the board's intent for us to do that, we can certainly do it.
Is there any urgency with regard to this matter?
Not
Can
particularly.
we wait until next week?
Sure.
Because I would recommend, this isn't one of my schools, but based on experiences at schools where I do have these, I'd recommend that we give legal a chance to build that into the agreement because...
well, if I vote no, it'll happen, won't it?
That's right. Okay. So, or we could just table it until next week. So
that's your choice.
Just table it until next week would be my recommendation. Okay. If we can get it in next week, I pledge that I'll vote for it. But I'd like to have something built into it. Yeah. Okay. All right. So can we just table it until next week? Thank you.
All right.
Because they really are ugly.
Well, I have to
Terrible.
agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. Item H2. This is our operational expectation on financial planning. Superintendent.
Yes, thank you, President Barrera. We have a series of 3 OEs to present tonight to update you, and this is our annual work plan compliance. And I'd like to call Phil Stover, our new Deputy Soup for Business, to the dais, and he'll update you on financial planning.
Good evening, President Barrera, members of the board. OE6 is the operational expectation that you approved in late April. We are presenting you our findings, our belief with regard to our compliance. There are 10 items in this expectation. We believe we are compliant with 6, and we identified ourselves as not in compliant with 4. 2 of the items that we believe we are not in compliant with are OE 6.0 and OE 6.1. The reason we identified that we were not in compliance is that those 2 items call for us to have training done of our staff by the Deputy Superintendent Academics in all of the academic issues of the district, all of the academic guidelines that have been put forward, and that has not happened yet as of this point since the end of April. So we are saying we have not done that, and that is OE 6.0 and OE 6.1. We look forward to coordinating that with Nellie Meyer to have that training done so that our financial people are much better in touch with and aware of the academic goals for student achievement of the district. Thirdly, OE 6.3. We are identifying ourselves as not in compliance with that particular requirement because in the interpretation statement there, it requires that we have provided you percentages spent to date for each budget category, and we have not provided you that yet. We look forward to giving you that kind of information quickly, but that has not yet been done. Also, the statement on page 7 there says we will know we are compliant when we are providing you quarterly financial reports, and we are planning on beginning that, as I told you this morning, at the end of August, and we believe from that point forward that we will then be in compliance. 6.5 on page 11. We have identified ourselves as not in compliance with that expectation, and the reason for that is that it requires us to submit a 5-year budget plan. This is the item we added at your request that we provide you long-term budget planning. And this budget cycle, we did not do that. We did not give you a 5-year plan. We gave you a 3-year plan. So in the future, starting next budget cycle, we will be providing you a 5-year plan. So of the 10 items, we have identified ourselves as not being compliant with 4. We believe we are in compliant with the other 6, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, I would move approval with compliant with noted exceptions.
Second.
Any comments on discussion?
Wait a minute. You're in compliance with noted exceptions, or
Yes.
you're not in compliance?
In compliance with noted exceptions.
I just want to say that I think that this process that we've been working on in terms of coherent governance is really working, because I think we can see very clearly the areas where we're doing it right and the areas where we set high goals in terms and we're saying, okay, these are not done. The next time we will review this will be when?
It's an annual update, but with the board prerogative to ask for a status report sooner than the annual update.
Yeah, it's supposed to be
practice we've
updated.
had in the past.
It's supposed to be updated in August.
Right. So, I mean, when we see certain areas of non-compliance, it might be a good idea to set a date somewhere in between to kind of review.
Well, the two of these require a budget cycle for us to be in compliance. So we wouldn't be able to be. We would still be out of compliance until the next budget is presented to you in June.
Which two are those?
That would be the last two that I mentioned to you, because we're required to give you percentages, and it would be on page 11, OE 6.5. That requires a 5-year budget plan. We couldn't present you that until the next budget cycle itself.
So you couldn't do the one about the 5-year budget cycle, and the other one that you could not do would be what?
That would be that's really the only one we can't do. OE 6.3. As soon as we start providing you quarterly and monthly, we will be in compliance. And then technically the first two require us to have academic training in submitting you the budget. We can have the training first, and so I would suppose once that training is done, we will be in compliance. What we have to show you, though, is evidence of that academic training in the budget document that we provide you next year.
Would it be unreasonable to review this in 3 months?
Yeah, I agree actually with that. Yeah.
Fine.
We're going to be doing it anyway, because we're going to be in the middle of a budget process starting almost tomorrow.
Sure.
Yeah, but it won't be...
I think a status
really
report of where we are in 90 days is reasonable.
Sure.
I mean, Phil can
Absolutely.
be measuring how far we've moved in that direction.
That'd be great.
Obviously just on the ones that are not in compliance.
Okay, great. We've got a motion and a second. Please vote. Okay, great. Okay, item H3, we've got two speakers, Ethel Larkin and Derek Howard. Is Ethel?
Aye.
I had you guys for the Personnel Administration Monitoring Report. It was a consent agenda item that you wanted to speak to?
You were talking about
You don't want to speak on item H3.
Okay.
That's fine. Not a problem. Okay, Superintendent.
President Barrera, this is the next OE update. This is OE5, Personal Administration Monitoring Report, and I ask Sandra Hueso, our Chief Human Resources Officer, to come forward.
Good evening, Superintendent Koga, President Barrera, board members. With your permission, what I would like to do is walk you through OE5, the Personnel Administration. One of the things that we were able to do is take a look at the different expectations that the board had in terms of human resources. And we were able to identify 3 of the basic functions of what human resources does. Certainly, we do realize that our role in the organization is to take a look at identifying and deploying and developing the human capital that the district has in order to meet its strategic mission. In terms of the operational expectations for personnel administration, we do have functions within 3 basic areas: the staffing, employee services, and certainly system-wide, the service that we provide to the district. In terms of staffing, we do provide the recruitment, application management, and assignment and transfer. Basically, these are the areas that are reflected in OEs 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 5.6, 5.13, and 5.15. And this has to do with being able to do background checks, references with regards to every single applicant that we do hire. One of the things that we have been able to do in the last couple of months is we did have a significant number of management recruitments where we were able to present to the board for their approval those candidates as is a requirement under 5.15, where the board has the final approval for those assignments. However, one of the areas that we do need to show some improvement in has to do with attracting and retaining a diverse workforce. One of the things that we do use as a measure when it comes to teacher quality, and although limited, we are using the highly qualified definition under NCLB, where right now we're 99.4% compliant when we use that definition. And we certainly understand that that is only one factor that can be considered with regards to teacher quality of what we expect for the school district. your Vision 2020 does have an indication that you would like us to see an engagement of how we define in terms of quality, engaging principals and teachers that would help us identify how to best recruit and retain teachers. And for us, that would be the next step of taking pretty much your expectation and raising it to the next level. Again, right now, our measurement with regards to teacher quality has to do with having them have the appropriate credentials to be in the assignment, where we are doing appropriate background checks, and that we are soliciting references, and we're referring candidates to school sites that get a 4 out of a 5 on those references. However, understanding that our best recruiters are our own staff, and engaging them in identifying and helping us develop that plan of recruitment certainly only makes sense, and that would be some of the next steps that we would be able to follow there. The other thing that we need to be able to do is not only attract the diverse staffing, but also be able to retain it. And that means that we have to create a culture that allows everyone to contribute to the organization, that we're able to capitalize on differences and similarities so that we are being strategic. So one of the things that we do need to do is take a look at our retention rates when it comes not only to the aspect of diversity, but who is leaving our district. One of the things that we were able to do is we were able to create a survey that we provided to the retirees. However, the sampling was too small to be able to draw any conclusions. But certainly one of the expectations that Human Resources said is that we are looking to provide survey data so that we're able to use that to analyze our trends and certainly be able to make decisions with regards to the level of service that we provide. When it comes to employee services, this is the orientation, induction, benefits, monitoring of leaves, employee assistance, and the maintenance of personnel files. These are some of the areas where we deem ourselves to be compliant. We have been able to maintain the confidentiality of the personnel files and the materials that we maintain. The IT department has been very instrumental in helping us do that with the backing up of very important data, mostly nightly, and certainly the firewalls. Where we also do need to make some strides is making sure that the Welcome Center is fully functional and operating. Right now we have identified the staff that would be able to help us with that. However, there is one section of that Welcome Center that we do definitely need to work on, and that is being able to put a lot of more information on the web, where we develop information with regards to the rules and regulations. So you will notice that we did deem ourselves non-compliant in the area of policies because we need to do a better job up front in terms of the welcome or onboarding of the employee, where we let them know what the expectations are. Right now the focus seems to be on those requirements where regards to the filling up of documentation, the oath taking. However, we do need to do a better job in regards to a more welcoming to the district. The same thing with regards to employee benefits and salary. Right now we're comparable. However, we do understand that the expectation of the board is that we become competitive. And one of the things that you will see in our document is the last data that we had in regards to that comparison, which was done in 2007. However, we did get a document that was presented by the California Department of Education that also would let us know where we stand statewide as we continue to monitor and work in that area. In terms of system services, this is union negotiations, policy application, employee evaluation, staff relations, employee relations, procedural guidelines, workforce training and development. These are basically 4 of the areas that we feel that we're not compliant. We have made some steps with regards to identifying at least a plan of action or where we would begin with these areas. Certainly more recently, as you know, we have pretty much negotiated 7 contracts and have been ratified in a relatively short amount of time. However, this exemplifies the collaboration between labor and management. One of the things that you will notice in our document is that areas surrounding performance evaluation we feel we're not compliant in. However, although the contracts are closed, there are still several opportunities that we have with the associations to continue to talk about the development of a tool that more closely aligns to the board's expectation. Now, certainly, there's a lot of flexibility that's already present in terms of the language that we have in those contracts. One of the things that we need to do as we're working with principals and providing training in this area, as we have indicated that would be one of the indicators of effectiveness, is the fact that this is a tool that can be used to provide feedback to teachers, both that exemplify pretty much effective performance, where we could use that as models of what is it that the good teachers are doing. And by the same token, this is also the instrument that is available to us to inform the employee of those areas that need to be improved, and also the opportunity for the conversation to happen about the supports. Now, certainly, one of the things that we also want to have the performance evaluation be used as is also about career development and advisement. Sometimes, it takes the manager to have the conversation with the employee to highlight what those strengths are and to encourage them to be able to seek other opportunities even within our own district, which would help us with regards to taking a look at, are we promoting folks from within? Are we preparing them? And that would be one of the areas that we also need to improve on. And that would be with regards to professional development and the development of career advancement opportunities. Now, one of the things that we do want to do in terms of how we measure where we are on a lot of these areas has to do with what level of service we provide, but also the training that may go along with it. There are a lot of areas that we do need to provide training on from terms of human resources. We do some basic training with regards to performance evaluation. However, I think that's an area that we can continue to improve on. We do provide other mandated retrainings for our management and our staff as well. One of the things that we do want to do better, and that is providing data and using data to be able to make hiring decisions, be able to project better. That's certainly one of the areas that in the last couple of months has certainly been heightened as an area of weakness. However, by the same token, as we are doing, establishing better measurements and certainly better systems by which we track those measurements, we should be able to provide you with better reports so that you are able to make more timely decisions, more accurate decisions, so that you have what you need. And certainly we understand that one of the things that we are closely working with is taking a look at how much technology we can put behind some of these things. So overall, certainly there are several areas that we do admit with regards to not being compliant in. We certainly would welcome any feedback in terms from the board's perspective if we are on the right track on some, even on the areas we deem ourselves to be compliant in. But basically what we're looking at is overall 6 areas. However, we do think that those areas are interrelated. So we would be doing a comprehensive plan, because we think that if we take care of defining teacher quality for us, that's certainly the driver behind the recruitment efforts. That certainly would be something that we would take a look at with regards to whether or not principals feel we gave them those quality candidates as they reflect in their performance evaluations. So we are looking at our OEs. This is our work. This is what we would measure our effectiveness by. So at this point, I would welcome your feedback.
First of all, I move approval with compliance with noted exceptions. Second. Okay, and my comments is thank you very much. I think that this morning we talked a little bit about the departments, what the responsibilities are. And I don't think many people really understand everything that has to go on in HR. I know you have 15 areas here that you were looking at for your department. I agree with a lot of them. I see that we're moving in the right direction in some of them. I agree where you have some noted exceptions and the work that needs to be done. So I thank you for that. Sometimes it's difficult for us to see where we're deficient. that we're deficient at. So it's good to be able to note those deficiencies and give us concrete plans as to how you plan to move forward. So thank you for this report.
I'd like to chime in on that. There seems to be some rather brutal honesty going on in the OE reports this time around. There seems to be a whole different point of view on this, and it's refreshing. But to the point, and speaking to the parcel tax and our critics, I don't know of any other governmental agency in San Diego County that is going through any process of continual evaluation like this. I might add several that don't have their audits done on time or haven't, we do that too. We do a lot of really good things. And as hard as it is to stand up at that podium and say that we're not where we want to be, the fact that you've got a roadmap to where you're going and are acknowledging, the issues before us and why they're important is a very powerful thing. And, I would put this type of evaluation that, all of you have come up to do against any of our critics and see if they could measure up as well. So,
thank you. Certainly, we do take very seriously the fact that we are non-compliant. And on behalf of the Human Resources Division, we thank you for your support and know that we will continue to make strides so that we come before you where you would see notable changes.
I would, echo Ms. Jackson, Ms. Nakamura's comments about. I really appreciate the honesty and the I think the rigor, the standards that we're holding ourselves to. I do think though that requires maybe again coming back in 3 months.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'd appreciate
we'll do that.
Dr. Evans.
Yes, I think this is really good information, and I'm not going to claim to have read every single line, but the highlights and one of the just from the above higher level looking down is in terms of the whole issue of recruiting and retaining. My assumption is in this labor market that we should be getting the very, very top. I mean, that the competition should be much higher. And so even when it says, we look at people who have a rating of 4 on a scale of 1 to 5, I would hope that it's more in the 5 range than in the 4, because there's so much that we can do in terms of supporting and helping and developing staff. But if we really first select the most talented, and I know that's easier said than done. I mean, in terms of the whole process of interviewing and checking references and practice lessons and so forth. I mean, I realize there's a lot involved in that. But and I think you did comment on this in some of the other areas, just to make sure that it's both looking at how they're recruited and the highest possible level, and then I saw some comments on the follow-up in terms of to really be able to say for this year these are the people that we hired, this is what happened within the second year and the third year and so forth, so that we're just continually refining the process of hiring and selecting by, and also refining the process of developing our newest employees, so that we can look at a few years down the road and say this was very successful, or no, we had a 50% turnover rate. Then another area was in terms of on compensation. I mean, it's always good to say we want to be competitive and so forth. I think one very graphic way to show would be comparisons with other urban districts, with other districts in the county in terms of how we compare. There are a lot of people that throw out ideas about how highly paid or underpaid teachers are, but it's good to have just a real comparison, because there's no question that there is a connection with attracting people and having competitive salaries. And then
it's not just salaries. I would add, the real bugaboo in that is trying to compare benefits, and boy, that's a real challenge, trying to compare what's in what benefit package and how that all adds up.
And it needs to be presented in various ways, because salaries and benefits is really the whole package. At the same time, there may be an issue which you'd have to investigate in terms of recruiting with very some very young teachers who may not be as interested in the whole benefit package and more interested in the cash package. So, I think we have to look at it from a variety of ways. And then the other area was in terms of, and I think my computer froze up at that time, get a clear look, but in terms of the issue of career advancement, the whole issue, particularly with teachers, of really outlining for us what are the opportunities for career advancement, because my belief is that it's somewhat limited with our current structure. I'm sure there's a lot more we can do in terms of allowing teachers to progress along a career scale. The idea of progressing on a career scale and staying in the classroom as opposed to jumping up into administration or something like that. And then finally, on the issue of evaluations, I realize there are lots of issues about collective bargaining agreements in terms of exactly how evaluations are done and what data can and cannot be taken into consideration. But there are formal evaluations, I'm assuming, and informal evaluations, which I'm really looking at in terms of support. I'm more concerned about the ongoing support, day-to-day, week-to-week, that type of evaluation to help a teacher improve than what goes on in a particular interim in a formal evaluation tool. So I think I agree with everybody saying that I think this is really good because we're opening it all up for realizing the tasks and the goals that we have set are not things that can be done overnight. And so I think it would be great also to have like a 3 months just to say what progress we've made.
Absolutely.
Great. So we've got a motion in a second. Any further comment? If not, please vote. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, and then item H4, so this is our OE11, communicating with the board.
And that puts me in the batter's box.
Yeah.
Before I proceed with this one, I think maybe Sandra timed it well. She and I meet tomorrow at 7 o'clock to talk about reviewing HR and where we are, these timely and periodic meetings we have. So good feedback from the board that we can discuss as we proceed. OE11 is communications with the board, and this is one that Cheryl and I try to hone in on and take feedback or compare notes with other actions across the district staff and with the community and campuses and how we communicate with you. What I have recommended that OE11 be viewed as compliant with some exceptions, and I want to highlight those briefly. There are 14 parts to this particular operational expectation, and they cover a range of ways we share information with the board, whether we're talking about briefing you on trends and facts of the moment, high interest media-related items, legislative changes, activities in the community, so on and so forth. So it's how well are you briefed, informed, educated, otherwise kept in the know. The areas where I think that we have notable room for improvement, and there are three of them that, in my opinion, 11.1 deals with the general work plan, the idea of managing a calendar, and a sequential presentation of operational expectations. Now, we have just started this particular work year, work plan. If you consider we went through a two-step process with you back in the January-February timeframe where we asked for you to take a look at our interpretation or our translation of your guidance into an interpretation and into indicators. Once that was approved, we began in March, April to move from that point in time to December with a work plan. To this point in time, we're current, we're up to date. We had to move one particular OE, the financial planning, from June into July just because we were coinciding with the budget adoption. But we're current this year, so my only historical reference is last year. And we really had to catch up. If you remember, we, I think, bombarded you with 6 or 7 between October and December. So to say I was compliant and looking back in time would be a misleading statement. We're current this year, and I'd like to report next year that we marched through the whole year. You got all of the updates appropriately, and we followed the pattern of either an annual or a periodic status report, like the two that we acknowledge we're going to do for in the next 90 days. So this one we have to just see how we do the rest of the year and maintaining our schedule. Another one where I viewed us as not fully compliant was 11.8, which deals with roles, responsibilities, clarity, and I think we're working real hard at it. I mean, this is that issue. Are we encroaching on each other's operating cycles? Better today than we have been in the past. But this is an area that will evolve, and I couldn't sit here and tell you we're absolutely there on that one. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. And then there's one called 1113, which deals with timely updates. And, still resounding is, well, you only got it to me in 24 hours or 72 hours or, short-fused. So I can't sit here and say that we've cracked the code on absolutely hitting all of those on time. We're doing better, but we could improve there. Clarity, timeliness, accuracy, maybe succinctness of the package coming to you. There's a second piece to that, and that is the follow-up status actions. Well, you took this action. How quick were you to turn it around? We've tried a little bit of a tickler system. We're just not there yet in getting back to you. So that's another area where I think we could improve. However, having those is the downside. I think the upside is the regular memos and email updates, the Friday packets, the Friday notes, the media press releases, the town hall sessions, the workshops. There is a wide range of ways we're communicating with you, either individually or bringing members of the staff or involving parent community groups coming to you. Those are all ways that there are multiple voices being heard and presenting information to you. We just need to work on that and continue to do so. So while I feel like we've come a long ways, we're getting better, and we have some excellent communications support guidance from Bernie Reinerson and his staff, and from other members that maybe not professionals in the realm, but are helping us with communicating better. We could always be doing better in this particular OE, and that's where I am today. I'm saying we're compliant with some exceptions.
Get our motion in a second.
So moved. I moved compliance with noted exception. Okay, and I had a comment too.
Okay. Yeah. There's no question that staff tries real hard on this, but there is some communication problems, and I think it might be structural. And I'll use the example. Usually, we're supposed to get our agendas, like Thursday or Friday, and we meet on Tuesday. So let's say I get an agenda item on Friday and get a chance to read it that very day, and I have a question. I can do an email, but I generally prefer to walk and look the person in the eye that had something to do with it and talk to them about it. So on Monday, I usually show up. Monday, they're in cabinet, and usually by maybe mid-noon, I might have been able to find them, but they also have things to do, and they may not all be scheduled. So by Tuesday, I have maybe raised some questions and got some emailed answers, but I've never had the eyeball question. You know what the question? You ask a question, you get an answer, but the question is generated by the answer, and then you don't have the real answer you were searching in the first place. So it might be that the structure of when we meet is the problem. For example, if we met, I'm not proposing this, I'm saying let's talk about it. But if we met on Thursday and got our agendas whenever, we'd have a work week to look at it and to deal with it and talk with people and try and get to some of our concerns analyzed before we actually have to go into Monday or Tuesday like we don't know what we're talking about. So, I honestly believe there's a structural problem, and I've seen it for more than one. It's not just this time around. I've been at this board, as you know, for a while. It's always seemed to be a problem. I get Friday agendas or late additions to the agendas and never have a chance to actually look eyeball to eyeball with the person that could give me a simple answer and we'd be over it. Instead, I got to wait until I get into a board meeting and start, muscling my way around or trying to ask really significant questions when they could have been resolved earlier. So I'd say the communication that this is all about may be resolved considerably by a better structure on how we meet. and not asking more. Like we could say, we're not going to have anything on the agenda unless we get it on Thursday, flat out. No way. If you don't get us to it on Tuesday, we're not going to talk about it because we haven't had any chance to talk about it. That might be a way to work, but there might be a better way to just put the meetings off until Thursday instead. And I just think we need to brainstorm that. Because I know the staff, in budget, we get budget stuff generated Sunday evening. Don't kid me, I know what happens. Okay, we get it on Monday, maybe, and then we gotta figure out how to analyze it ourselves. It's only this thick, and I read fast, but I still can't analyze stuff that fast. So structurally, I think the reporting and the analyzing that we're expected of the board is unreasonable, and then that becomes an argument we'll have over communication. It's flat out the problem. So, let's talk, I guess, is the right discussion. Yeah.
I think you raise a good point. I know that traditions are maybe hard to change. In terms of the Tuesday being pretty close to the beginning of the week, and we often have meetings starting at 8 a.m. on Tuesday morning, which really only leaves Monday, and that's kind of the day.
But they're in cabinet.
No, but I'm just saying. Yeah. I'm saying it's, or other things are going on too. So it's a very limited amount of time, and so I think that would be something to look at some point. Even if it were in the middle of the week, it would allow time both before a meeting to generate more discussion, and then for follow-up, so after the meeting too, so it's not like, that's why I would think even, for example, Wednesday as opposed to Tuesday or Thursday, it allows kind of time on both sides. But that's just, I'm not proposing that either, I'm just putting that out there for thought.
A lot of things are locked in. Wednesdays are association meeting times.
Yeah, I mean, so it's probably...
You're wiped out unless you renegotiate all that.
It might be worth asking the superintendent to work with the staff and just sort of give us a sense of how does that change your weekly schedules if we were to, move board meetings. But, Ms. Jackson.
A good report. Just some of the things to keep in mind, and certainly that is one of them, us getting things in a timely manner to be able to read and evaluate it. The other thing is that we've had a pretty good long-standing policy that if a board member asks for something, all board members get the response, and that has not changed. Okay, it doesn't matter if it's me or the board president or whomever, everyone gets a response. And what happens when people don't do that, they think that other board members don't find out, but they do, and then that causes distrust between the executive staff and the board members. So I would reiterate that we make sure that
I'm
staff
glad you bring
knows
that up. That's an important point to be said in public with staff here and myself. We got to maintain the discipline. One question, replied to all five.
Yes, please. Written.
Yes. Right. Okay, we've got a motion in a second.
Yeah, I just had a couple of comments. And I can't remember which one it was. Maybe it was 11.8, the whole issue of encroachment areas of responsibility. As the superintendent, do you have any suggestions to the board in this regard? Because obviously, for board superintendent relations is a two-way street, and you're kind of assessing yourself: are we in compliance with doing what we're supposed to do for the board? But we also need feedback from you on what types of things we might be doing or not doing that are hindering that process.
Well, I think, Dr. Evans, this is an area that we're making good progress in. I think why I don't feel we're quite there yet, because we've changed management frameworks and we're evolving a little bit. And I'll give you a couple of issues. Even myself, I'm asking, do I talk to just Nellie and Phil as the two deputies now, or do I go talk to somebody else? New area superintendents, and where are their roles in communications? So, I want to try and sort that out where we define and evolve and clarify roles. But I think that both staff and board are working real hard on trying to understand roles and responsibilities. And some of this, it's the newness of the people or the newness of the framework we're working with right now.
Right, I think one area that would to be developed is in terms of board and area superintendents, because we're in certain areas and communicating with them, and we might kind of bypass the the overall viewpoint and just kind of go directly and be doing things a little bit on the side. So that's just new.
Yeah, I'd like to weigh in on Mr. DeBeck's comment about Thursdays as a hard deadline. My experience in working with other boards is that that's an important thing to observe, and that anyone who sends something over the transom after that date, there ought to be some sort of a tracking system for that, so that you, as a supervisor, as a superintendent, who's consistently, speaking as someone who's always consistently late myself, but who is consistently late, just so that,
Finance.
Sorry, guys. Mr. Beck, that was notably unfair.
I know, but it's true, but it's okay.
No. But, just so that it's, that's the only way you can cure people of it, to be honest with you. And I do think that Thursday, he's got a good point that when we come in on the weekend, you are all tied up on Mondays, and we can't get, it can be difficult to get answers, even though I don't.
So that I understand, the draft agenda, which comes a week before,
right.
Friday is okay, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
but that we're talking about the final agenda being out on Thursday night as opposed to Friday night.
That's right. That's a hard date, and then you put a scarlet letter on them, but you do something to keep track of where there's a consistent problem, and then that probably should go into the OEs, and however you're tracking this, because it does. It does accumulate after a while, and it does become a habit, and it does delay, process. So probably enough said on all of that, but I wanted to weigh in with my 2 cents.
Okay. Please vote. Great. Okay, on to item H5. So this is the update of our administrative procedure regarding school utilization, reconfiguration, closure planning. Got a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
One comment.
We've got a comment.
I think in here, as I was reading, it said that the whole time would be, one place it said 12 months, one place it said 9 months. And the reason I'm asking that question is because people know that I'm opposed to closing schools. However, given the economic crisis that we have, if we determine that we have to close schools in the 11-12 school year, that means we can't, because without a policy now, and it says 12 months, and by the time school starts, we'll be right outside that 12-month window. We won't even start our talking about our budget for that year until late September, early October. So that automatically takes one item off the table for us. So the question, my question is, what latitude will we have if it comes down to a point that if we see in January that we have no other choice than maybe to consolidate or close schools, would that fit within that window or not, or what do we do? Where is the latitude for us?
Right. In the revised procedure, we do specify a timeline that would begin. Well, we're a little bit off because we're still getting the procedure approved, but we were going to start now, basically, in giving you a report to do an analysis, and then you give us a trigger to develop the community outreach, and then come back to you in February with recommendations, should there be any, to close schools, which is a rather tight timeline, given that there's holiday breaks and things like that. I think the best that could be done in terms of the timeline is really that 1st February to give you that information, and with all the things going on, I think April is as good as we could make it. There's a lot. We've really compressed the timeline to April, and I'm not sure if it's really humanly possible to do it much tighter than that.
April prior to the September closing? Is that what you're saying?
Right. Yeah, a vote would be taken in April to close the following September.
A year and a few months?
Yes.
Okay.
But that would not necessarily help us.
If a decision was made in April to close School X or do something different with School X, then the next thing that would happen is that there'd be a district transition team that would work to make that happen by the new school year. So it could happen.
If we say we voted in April 2011,
right,
it would be to close the school in September 2011.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how the timeline is laid out.
Same year. Okay. All right.
Okay.
So you're talking 5 months later.
Effectively, yes. From April to September.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. As it happens, all of our, I call it, our policies have their, I'm positive, they have the wiggle room for us to make decisions based on the conditions that we have at the time. You know, what we set, and what I believe this is the why I like this idea, is this is a guideline for how you do it. It doesn't mean that in emergency conditions you can't make decisions that violate your own guidelines. I mean, I've had people come in with a Bible and verse and say you can't do this when it's a decision that must be made in order for the district to get something done. So I'm not going to worry about the difference between a policy that we believe is an ideal model for how we do it and the serendipity of standing up and saying, wait a minute, this time we're going to do it differently because we got to.
Right.
I think this is important, and I think the community needs to know it.
The whole reason we revised this procedure was because the last time we looked into this, we did come up with a different process.
Well, I know you shortened the timelines, and they were positive, and I'm not going to get into that argument. I think you did a good job on redesigning the way to do it. But it is a policy that is still a guideline for how we do it, not a rule.
Okay. I have a comment. My computer's frozen up, so I can't look exactly at the wording here, but whether it's on a reasonable time frame or we have to do it on an emergency time frame, I think one of the things we had talked about was the cluster community involvement. So even if it's on a short time frame, we're going to X community, and we're saying in X community you have 6 elementary schools, and we need to figure out together what to do about that, so that even if it's on a short time frame, rather than just this thing from the past, the central office kind of just picks out and chooses. That's one way to have community involvement. It's painful, but at least the people that are doing it are dealing with the pros and cons within their own community.
And in our timeline, we do.
Yeah, but they don't have the veto power. That's still the same discussion. You know,
absolutely.
That's the key.
Well, they don't have.
They'll always say those guys. I've been through this more than once, and they'll always say, these are the ones I want you to close. And they'll busily gather together enough people to support that point of view when the decision should be to close this one and nobody's there to talk about it. So you just, it's true, you need the hearings, you need the input, but the board has to have a rational reason for doing it and a format for how you do it. And this is good because it's got it in it.
Right, and I'm just saying your people are going to stand up for their school no matter what, but it's just a community-wide involvement as opposed to just a single school.
Okay, great. We've got a motion and a second. Please vote. Great. On to the consent agenda. Ethel and Derek, what number did you guys want to speak to?
I want to pull one, too.
Okay, hold it.
I understand.
18 and 22. Okay, great. Okay, and Mr. DeBeck, you wanted to pull which item?
Yeah, I want to talk about 6.
Well, hold on. You want to pull I-6?
Pull I-6, yeah.
Okay, so let's call up Paul Falcone on item I-27. He left. Okay, so Ethel, do you want to? Go do both, yeah.
Ethel Larkins, president of OSS 724. You guys have my address on file and my phone number. CSCA. Derek Howard is also here. Basically, we wanted to speak on I-18 about classification of a new position, which is hold on. Been sitting there a little bit too long. Culinary planning manager. Yeah, it's a manager position. It's culinary planning and development. This position is new, and we're looking at $97,000 for this position. My understanding is we're supposed to be in a hiring freeze, and that's supposed to be district-wide. Is food service exempt from that? The other part of this is we've already taken a hit as far as food service workers. The whole district has taken a 5-day reduction. and our food service, which you guys have realized, and I hope you know that we're the lowest paid, and we have a bunch of 2.5, 3.5 hour workers, and it's going to be affecting us for the 5-day salary reduction. It's $43 a month, and some of them only make $200, $300 a month. Okay, there's not a need for this as far as the position to be the Lewis Kitchen, which we have there. We have a 1,000-gallon kettle there at the Lewis Kitchen, where before, when you guys were going to have the central office, the central kitchen, which that was scrapped. Okay, that kitchen has been there, and those facilities have been there, being dormant. We haven't used them. We used them to make sauces and soups before, and we didn't have a culinary manager to run that department or a need for one. We had people that were on staff that did it. Okay, so my question is, why now? There's not a need. We're supposed to be in a budget crisis. We're trying to do our part to say we're there with you to help as far as the money. So why are we going to, or why is there going to be an approval, if you approve this, to bring in a management position that's not going to help? Okay, and where is it helping the food service workers that have been with the district for 10, 15, 20 years that still are not benefited? I see some of the information here that says it's going to allow, to bring in, but we keep hearing that and other proposals that come to the district, and it doesn't trickle down to the employees. Okay, and I'm saying that's a lot of money. That's almost $100,000. Okay. Thanks. Go ahead.
Derek Howard, President Barrera, school board members, Superintendent Koba. I'm the Vice President for CSEA 724 Food Service Workers. I also have a problem with this, and I have a problem because how do I keep my morale up on my workers? We took a 5-day hit. We're the lowest paid in the district. I think we're the most underappreciated because we haven't had any type of compensation. And in the last couple of years also, they keep bringing in equipment. They got money. Food service generates basically like their own money. They buy $1,000 of equipment previous years. Then they bring in a chef for $70,000, $80,000. A year ago, it didn't work out. And now they want to bring in a culinary manager for $97,000. How do I speak to my people in orientation where we're working 12 hours a day, $18, $20 a day, trying to survive off of it, and you're going to take 5 furlough days from us and bring in a $97,000 manager? I don't see how that even jives together. So I'm asking for a recommendation of no. And on I-22, I thought we had already made an agreement about Domino's Pizza. And all of a sudden it's back on the agenda. And I'm kind of suspicious of this because we are 10-month employees, and actually we're on vacation, but we came in just to address this issue. Why is these items being placed on this agenda when we go on vacation and not before? That's another thing. So.
Items 18 and 22 for further discussion.
Okay, Ethel, did you want to speak to 22 as well?
Yeah, I was going to say the 22 is the one I was here before 2 or 3 weeks ago when we talked about the Domino's Pizza and it's contracting out our work. Like I said, we do pizza, we make pizza already, and here we are again. It's back on the agenda to approve. And this is $600,000. It's a lot of money to contract out to some contractor outside the district to bring in pizzas that we make in-house. We brought this up years ago about Subway. We were contracting out with Subway sandwiches, and we were making Subway sandwiches. It doesn't make sense. We're trying to keep things in-house, to keep the budget, where we can, and to help. But here we go. We want to contract out our services that we do, that food service do now. We brought in September of last year. There were people brought in. There were over 300 people brought in, but they were 2-hour positions. So there's a need to feed the kids. We get that. We understand that. And as our need that we increase in feed the kids, there's additional services and duties that are being placed on our food service workers. And if you need those many people to come in and to feed the kids, that means your production is going up, meaning that you have people that are there before to do the production, and you're bringing them and giving them extra time, so there's an obvious need to give them that additional half hour, which would put them into a benefited position. And that's not happening time and time again. You know, it looks good over here, but in reality, it's not helping the morale and the people that are actually doing the job. Thanks.
Okay, so we've got point items I-6, 18, and 22. Any others? Okay. Motion to second to approve the rest of the consent agenda.
Wait a minute. No, I didn't get to talk on my 6.
No.
You're just going to pull them.
Other than 6, 18, and 20.
All right. If that's the case, then yay.
Okay, let's start with I-6, Mr.
Okay. Well, I'm not saying I want to approve of this, but I really do believe that, you know, we're talking here, what's it, 500? No, that's not the one. I'll get back to it. I'm sorry, but the number is...
$25,000.
Yeah, $425,000. And I can't believe that we're willing to say that somebody else could design a better supplemental service than we could. You know, we just got through talking about who makes better pizzas, you know. And now I think we should be talking about who does better interventions for kids. And, you know, while this is just an authorization, and I know it's popular with the people who provide it. I mean, they may be even nonprofits. But I can't believe that they have the skills that our staff people have to develop these kind of programs. Now, some people are doing this, they're doing it through Saturday schools, and they're doing it with other kinds of stuff based on, you know, I'll call it manipulation of truancy data, doing a lot of stuff that you know, gets kids into afternoon or Saturday schools. But, you know, if we're good at what we do, we ought to be able to do this so well that the parents would want the kids to go into an after-school program at the very same school the kids are at, not have to go transported somewhere else, and not to be, I'll call it, some of them are actually incenting the kids to stay there longer and have some fees paid. So, you know, I honestly don't like the idea of just because they're state approved, why we don't compete with the state approved doesn't make sense to me. And I think that's an instructional responsibility of our staff to develop a competitive program to intervene for kids. Because if we're throwing up our hands and saying, we can't do it, let them do it, then I could say, well, maybe they ought to be doing some other stuff too. And I don't think that's the way I feel.
Are we SES provider? Didn't we attempt to become one?
Don't we? We have to. I think we have to hire these people under No Child Left Behind. We can't develop it ourselves.
In Sweetwater, they're doing it.
We're required to. It's part of George Bush's plan to privatize education.
Actually, 2 years ago, we were approved to be a provider, and the leadership at that time decided that we should not be a provider. Now that we're in program improvement, we are no longer eligible.
Yeah. We can't do it anymore. But we could have gotten a list of what 37 state-approved supplemental education, which ones we're picking, and that list isn't on there. I don't have an attachment on mine.
Okay, so then let me just back off. I want to just finish one more thing then. So then we've done this year after year after year after year since we disobeyed, but we never have had any solid evaluation of the progress of the kids in these programs.
It's true.
None.
Solid, not solid, but we do have some information.
Well, they went to the school, and their API scores changed, or their results changed, or not.
Ron Rohde did a study of the SES students participating in the program, and he can give you his actual results. And I hate to.
I don't want them. I think the parents ought to get them.
Well, we did share that. We shared that information with parents, and that's the reason why it's increasing in terms of numbers and wanting to get to the service. It's because parents are aware, and it's because of convenience as well. It's on the weekend, it's after school, it's in the home, it's online. So it's such a variety. Parents are really interested in the convenience.
I'd like to see some sort of plan or analysis of. I understand that while we're in as a district program improvement, we're prohibited from doing it. But I'd like to see an analysis of, could we do the same services at the same cost or cheaper, and could we do it better? And I'd like to have that for an internal document, and maybe we use that for advocacy, or maybe we use it to plan to be there once we're out of program improvement. But I'd like to see that put together.
We actually submitted a plan, and I do have the copy of it to get approved by CDE, and so we do have a plan where we could do it, and we could do it better, but we were not allowed to do it.
Yeah, maybe we could get that to us and maybe to Bernie, and we could do some advocacy.
I'm also wondering if there's, I understand there's also an issue of parents signing up for these programs, but then the kids not attending. Do we track that at all?
Yes, we do. We have a real good tracking system, and over 4,000 students participated this year, and we're looking at 80% of them fulfilled their requirements in terms of completing the program. So it has changed tremendously.
Good. All right. At least they're attending.
All right. Mr. DeBeck, do you want to make a motion to approve, or does anybody want to make a motion?
No, I don't.
I move approval.
Second.
Got a motion and second. Please vote. Okay, item I-18.
Yeah, I'll speak to this, and I can't support 18 or 22. And both of those are dealing with food service, but the concern that I have is this, and the manager, the fact that we have people that come to us and work for 2-3 hours, and no one is willing to give them another hour so they can get benefits is a shame. I made a comment a couple of years ago that many of our actual students that are actually in our schools are from our CSEA working force, because most of them actually live here in the city, whereas several of the other people, executives and teachers, may live out in other areas, which is okay. But the fact that we're going to pay, we only have people that will work 2 or 3 hours so they're not benefited, rather than extend them so they can get benefited, but then bring in a manager. I know how well the Breakfast in the Classroom program is working, and fully support that and other efforts that we have done to get students to eat more food. But I do have a problem with adding another manager to the mix, and I do have a problem with our people not being able to get to the point. You get people that have been here 10 years or more, $2 or $3, 2 or 3 hours a day. That is not, that's barely making it. On the case with the Domino Pizza, I thought that we did say that we were going to at least compete with them or something. Mm-hmm. We had, rather than just outsourcing it totally. So, but I won't support either of these. And I see that you're here, Gary, and I love you. You do great work, but every now and then we have to disagree.
Yeah,
maybe. Please inform us.
Could you, in a budget crisis where I think our motto should be use it up, wear it out, make do or do without, I would like to know what why the justification is for this manager.
Well, thank you for allowing me to speak to you, President Barrera, board members, Superintendent Koba. This is an exciting time, and why I bring both of these at the same time to you is because it makes a tremendous amount of opportunity for us to further initiate some of the initiatives that we're going to do in food services. Now, having Domino's, as we've had as an a la carte item, generates $1.2 million in revenue, and it's just strictly an a la carte item. Now, we have our own pizza, but our pizza currently, like most school districts throughout the country, comes frozen, commodity. I want to get rid of that. You charged me last meeting with doing that, and that's why I want to phase out Domino's. I sent a memo to you on June 17th to phase out the Domino's by bringing in this culinary position. We have some great opportunities. We really do. We're building a cold storage facility right now that will be completed at the end of August. It has a production facility room with it that we saw in several years in the future. I need somebody that's going to organize that. We're going to bring in more positions and benefit positions with this, and some of these 3-hour employees that are currently doing 3 hours will be then put to 4 to 6 hours. We want to produce our own pizza, burritos, sauces. We have the cook chill facility that's been sitting idle. It was only used as an experimental before I came to the district. It was a $1 million investment the district made back 10 years ago when we were talking about a central kitchen facility. It was a test kitchen. I want to take that test kitchen. I need a culinary person that has the knowledge, the background, the education to orchestrate this. And Ethel Larkin and Derek Howard and I have met twice now, and I believe they were in full agreement with the concept of it all. This will create several benefit positions. I can't tell you exactly how many. If I could just review some of the things, there is such a movement throughout our country right now to bring children better, healthier products, work with local farmers, work with local vendors and products that we can bring in fresh rather than frozen from the outside. We don't want to support outsourcing. We want to introduce and really do a lot of insourcing by creating our own products. I brought this jar that's been sitting on my desk for 5 years, and this is a vision. This is something that I've wanted to do for a long time, and I believe this culinary position will also help us create where we can actually market in a larger jar, but to other school districts, selling other school districts pizza, selling other school districts our fresh burritos, selling them pizza sauce. I want to put this in grocery stores so that we can make money for our district. And I really don't have the resources of a person in our district that can get into the kitchen, work with our staff. We need a lot of training with our people, too. Our food service workers need culinary skill training, knife training, equipment training, how to do recipes, how to work safely in the kitchen. We don't have that support right now. This is merely a $77,000 to $97,000 position, which is going to create several, and I mean several jobs by having 2 separate facilities, and we're even looking at taking a Scripps and possibly Clark prep kitchen and doing a second shift where we can mass produce. And if I can just show you an exhibit of what I'm talking about, is that allowable?
Yes.
While you're passing that out.
But that's not the point. The point is people.
But this is the time to do this. There's never been a better time with parents calling me all the time. When are we going to be able to get away from processed foods? My commitment to you and to the parents is 3 years completely eliminating processed foods. I believe we're leading the edge in the country. I want to keep us above and lead the country in our school food services. And I really believe in this, or I wouldn't be here today. And I want to phase the Domino's out as soon as we bring in our own pizza. And then we're looking at a burrito machine. We can make our own burritos and having the staff to assemble. So I'll wait for any more questions.
Gary, could I just ask you, would you be able to do an analysis of, in a sense, the investment in this position? What would it result in terms of the number of jobs that could be created, or non-benefited jobs that could turn into benefited jobs, and revenue generation for the district? Is that?
Well, that's a business plan, which is exactly what I was going to talk about. Okay. You know what? I honestly do believe that you have in your head this business plan. And I do believe that you're headed in the right direction, and your aim is to create jobs and keep them inside. I feel that way. The problem is it doesn't come that way when you do things like this, because it's in your head, not in the board's head. And so the business plan, and the business plan vetted by the employees themselves, wouldn't hurt.
Right.
But see, when we get into this thing, it's a case of somebody saying, oh, I only make whatever a month or a week or whatever it is, and now you're hiring this high-paid person. What is missing is the entrepreneurial understanding that it takes some kind of creativity to create jobs.
Right.
And there are a lot of folks that we can argue these things even in the private sector. Do you want to invest in design so you get more money? And some corporations think, oh no, we don't need research and development. But this is exactly what I think you're trying to say. So if we put it in that context, then I think this is a way that's an easy sell. But if you put in the hiring of a new person, it's a bad sell.
Well, thank you for that. Yes. We have 4 initiatives for next year for our food service department, which we've reviewed with our team. The one is increasing and continuing our healthy food options, increasing participation amongst all students and staff, refresh and re-energize the current programs that we currently have, from Breakfast in the Classroom, the Kids' Choice Cafe, to our summer programs, and to several others. And the fourth is new and innovative production methods. We're bringing on a cold storage facility with a production room that is going to sit empty if we don't pass this very soon. I have a cook-chill facility that is sitting empty and dormant, where we could be making our own products, phasing out the last item that we have bought from anyone like a Domino's, but phasing out also all these manufacturers and processors that school districts across the country are buying basically crap. And, it goes on, and I really think that this is a very small investment for a very large return.
I agree with you, Gary. What I don't agree with is you having 300 people at $2 and $3, 2 and 3 hours a day working. And in those goals that you had, I didn't hear once you elevating any of the people that work for you, the ones that work 2 and 3 hours with no benefits. No benefits. I didn't hear you once say how you're going to increase their livelihood. We have a rotation of people, right, and the principals are out there trying to scrap and find people to come in to work 2 and 3 hours because they're rotating, because they can't afford to stay. One thing that could stabilize that is if you do make it so it can be 4 to 6 hours so they can get benefits. So what you're saying is true here, but let's go to the school side and see how that rotation is affecting the school side. I'm not hearing that. Well, and I think the board needs to understand that perspective as well. And the principals, when the principals have to go out here and find a noon duty person, that's time and energy, because the person that was there last year couldn't afford to stay, and they're gone someplace else.
Well, we know that our lunch periods are generally 30 minutes maximum, especially middle and high schools. Very short period of time. And that's the reason when we brought the carts out, which you were so gracious to allow us to purchase through the Proposition S, it gave us several additional points of service throughout the campuses on carts. Unfortunately, you have a 30-minute lunch period, and you have a 2 or 3 hour position to work that cart. And that's the reason for those positions. Now, elevating other people up from 3.5 to 4 and up for benefited positions will take place by us doing production of ourselves versus buying things in as we are now, already frozen, that all of our staff is doing. In a lot of cases, not all, we have made some tremendous progress in fresh food, but they're popping it into an oven and they're taking it out, and that's why their workload is less meaningful than creating more meaningful work for our employees, which I know we will do with this position and our facilities that we have and the equipment we did not pay for. It came by a grant by the USDA.
Right. Gary, what you're describing is exciting. I know you're going to be able to carry it out. We have a lot of faith in what you're able to do. I've got to wait to support this, though, until we see the business plan.
Okay.
And really, I believe this is one of those areas that we should be able to see. You and the CSEA folks be able to come together to us and say this is a plan that we can get behind.
I'll move to table it.
Okay, move to table it. Yeah. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further comment? Okay. Please vote to table it. Motions to table. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you, Gary.
Take my job.
We do let you.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
I will say that I heard this story over a year ago, so this vision of his is real out there. He's been developing it.
It's got to be here.
Okay, that concludes
I just have to point out that sushi is healthier than pizza and burritos.
Okay.
All right.
That concludes our meeting. We'll recess and meet upstairs.